Welcome to this lecture on the basics of neuroscience. Today, we are going to explore a fascinating and fundamental process called long-term potentiation. This is the exact cellular mechanism that allows your brain to learn new skills, form lasting memories, and adapt to the world around you. Let us dive in and see how it works. To understand our topic, imagine you are walking through a dense, overgrown forest for the very first time. You have to push heavy branches out of the way, and it takes a massive amount of energy. However, if you walk that exact same path every single day, the bushes get trampled down and a clear dirt trail forms. Soon, walking through the forest is incredibly fast and requires almost no effort. In the human brain, neurons communicate across tiny gaps called synapses, and they behave exactly like that forest path. Repeated use makes the connection stronger. Now that we have a mental picture, let us look at the formal biological definition. In neuroscience, this beautiful process of strengthening connections is known as long-term potentiation, or LTP for short. It is defined as a persistent, long-lasting increase in synaptic strength following high-frequency stimulation of a chemical synapse. Just like the forest path, when two neurons talk to each other repeatedly and intensely, the connection between them becomes stronger and faster. This persistent change is the fundamental secret to how we learn and remember things over our lifetime. So, how does this actually happen at the microscopic level? When a presynaptic neuron fires rapidly, it releases a large amount of the neurotransmitter glutamate into the synaptic cleft. This massive release strongly depolarizes the postsynaptic neuron. This electrical shift kicks out a magnesium ion that normally blocks a special receptor called the NMDA receptor. Once unblocked, calcium ions flood into the postsynaptic neuron, triggering a cascade of chemical reactions. Ultimately, this inserts more AMPA receptors into the membrane, meaning the next time the neuron fires, the electrical response will be much larger. Understanding this mechanism is absolutely critical because it is widely considered the primary cellular mechanism underlying learning and memory. Every time you study for an exam or learn to ride a bicycle, your brain is actively inducing LTP in specific circuits, particularly within the hippocampus. If we did not have this mechanism, our synapses would remain static, and we would suffer from severe anterograde amnesia, completely unable to form any new long-term memories. Furthermore, researching LTP helps scientists develop treatments for neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, where these crucial connections deteriorate. To understand how synaptic strength changes mathematically, we use a model based on Hebbian learning. The core idea is that neurons that fire together wire together. We express this with a simple formula. Delta W represents the change in synaptic weight, measuring how much stronger the connection becomes. Eta is the learning rate, determining how quickly the synapse adapts. The variable X is the presynaptic firing rate, and Y is the postsynaptic firing rate. Physically, if either neuron's activity increases, the change in weight increases, leading to a stronger connection. Let us see this formula in action with a concrete example. Imagine a synapse in the hippocampus during a learning event. We are given a learning rate of 0.01. The presynaptic neuron fires at 10 spikes per second, and the postsynaptic neuron fires at 8 spikes per second. We want to find the change in synaptic weight. We start by writing down our primary formula. Next, we carefully substitute our given values into the equation. Multiplying 0.01 by 10 and then by 8 gives us exactly 0.8 units. This positive number confirms the synapse is getting stronger. Now that we have calculated the change in weight, we need to find the final strength of the synapse. We cannot just look at the change, we must apply it to the original state of the neuron. This brings us to our second formula. W new represents the updated synaptic weight after long-term potentiation has occurred. W old is the original baseline strength before the intense stimulation. Delta W is the change we just calculated. In plain English, the new connection strength is simply the old strength plus whatever new strengthening was added by the recent neural activity. Continuing our previous example, let us calculate the final updated weight. We are given that the synapse initially had a baseline weight of 0.5 units. We already calculated the change in weight to be 0.8 units. We write down our update formula and substitute these values in. Adding 0.5 and 0.8 gives us a final updated synaptic weight of 1.3 units. Physically, this means the connection has more than doubled in strength. The next time the first neuron fires, it will easily activate the second neuron, proving a memory trace has formed. We have seen how weight changes abstractly, but what does this mean electrically? Long-term potentiation often works by inserting more AMPA receptors into the postsynaptic membrane. Physically, these new receptors act like extra doors opening up, which increases the membrane's electrical conductance. Conductance is simply a measure of how easily ions can flow through the membrane. When conductance increases due to learning, the electrical current flowing into the cell also increases, resulting in a much stronger electrical response to the same initial signal. To measure this electrical response, we use a variation of Ohm's law. This fundamental formula states that current is equal to conductance multiplied by voltage. Here, I old represents the initial synaptic current flowing into the postsynaptic neuron before any learning occurs. The variable G old is the initial conductance, which depends entirely on the original number of AMPA receptors. Finally, V is the constant voltage driving force pushing the ions across the membrane. If the conductance increases while the voltage stays the same, the resulting electrical current will physically increase. Let us apply Ohm's law to find the baseline state of a synapse. Suppose a synapse initially has a conductance of 2 nanosiemens, and the driving force for the ions remains constant at 60 millivolts. We want to calculate the initial synaptic current. We start by writing down our formula. Next, we substitute our known values, 2 for conductance and 60 for voltage. Multiplying these together gives us exactly 120 picoamperes. This represents the baseline electrical response of the neuron before any learning or potentiation has occurred. After a learning event, new receptors are added to the membrane, so we must update our conductance. This formula is very similar to our weight update rule. The symbol G new represents the new total conductance of the synapse after long-term potentiation has taken place. We find this by taking G old, the original baseline conductance, and adding delta G, which is the specific increase caused by the newly inserted AMPA receptors. Physically, a higher G new means the synapse now has a much wider pathway for ions to flow through. Let us calculate this new conductance for our ongoing example. We know the original baseline conductance was 2 nanosiemens. After long-term potentiation has occurred, the insertion of new AMPA receptors increases the conductance by 3 nanosiemens. We write down our update formula and carefully substitute the values 2 and 3. Adding them together, we find that the new total conductance is exactly 5 nanosiemens. This higher value mathematically reflects the biological reality that the postsynaptic membrane is now much more permeable to incoming ions, setting the stage for a stronger signal. With our updated conductance value in hand, we can finally determine the new electrical response. We apply Ohm's law a second time to see the final result. Here, I nu represents the new synaptic current flowing into the cell after learning has taken place. We calculate this using G nu, our updated conductance, multiplied by V, the voltage driving force. Notice that the voltage remains exactly the same, as the overall resting state of the cell has not changed. This formula will reveal exactly how much the electrical signal has amplified due to the learning event, showing the true power of potentiation. Let us finish our calculation to find the final electrical response. We just found our new conductance to be 5 nanosiemens, and our driving voltage remains constant at 60 millivolts. We write down our Ohm's law equation for the new current. Substituting 5 for conductance and 60 for voltage, we multiply them together. The result is a new synaptic current of 300 picoamps. Practically, the signal received by the neuron has jumped from 120 to 300 picoamps. This massive increase is the direct, measurable result of long-term potentiation. Now that we have proven the math, let us look at the biological diagram of this entire process. At the top, you see the presynaptic neuron terminal releasing red glutamate molecules into the synaptic cleft. On the postsynaptic membrane below, notice the green NMDA receptor. The diagram shows the magnesium block being expelled, allowing calcium ions to flood inside. Follow the arrow from the calcium influx. It leads directly to receptor insertion, showing a brand new blue AMPA receptor being added to the membrane. This visual perfectly summarizes how the physical pathway widens, leading to the increased conductance and current we just calculated. To wrap up our lecture, let us review the key takeaways. First, long-term potentiation is the brain's remarkable ability to strengthen synaptic connections based on recent intense activity. Second, biologically, this relies on unblocking NMDA receptors and inserting additional AMPA receptors into the membrane. Third, we can mathematically model this strengthening using the Hebbian learning rule, where simultaneous activity drives weight changes. Finally, this structural change increases electrical conductance, amplifying the neuron's response. Together, this microscopic cellular process forms the fundamental building block of all learning and memory over your lifetime. Thank you for watching.